Okay, part 3. Squeeze one out there. Great. So, before I get back into it, and we'll draw this into a conclusion for 3 hours, in 3 parts, because as previously stated, suicide is the cancer of society, and when it multiplies, it kills the entire body of the culture, and it's encouraged. It's being encouraged right now in Canada with MAID, right? For people that have they call them terminal conditions, and or they have physical impairments, which give them a terrible quality of life, and they see no way out because there's no support system, because the government doesn't want to have to pay for them. They'd rather, if this exists, because I learned this about MHOs, or not MHOs, what's it? What's it? HMO, it's HMO. The medical insurance group that provides health services for a fixed annual fee. They have insurance policies wagered against a person's death. So they speculate when someone's going to die. And when they do, they get a payout. Because it all goes in a circle. It's the economy of death, and the medical industrial complex. Right? All of these ancillary or auxiliary, tertiary, secondary to the actual practice, that profit off of the backs of other people's suffering with unnecessary surgeries. The suits for malpractice, the insurance, as I just mentioned, and the negligence that is involved with certain practices. So whether or not someone gets treatment or not, I'm gonna have to plug this in here. This is what it is to be a leader. Again, why am I doing this? Because I don't want to see people suffer any more than we already are. And how many cancer patients commit suicide because they don't see any way out? In a system that doesn't provide for them and puts them into so much debt. Because that happens here in Canada too, right? Cancer patients, well, there are means of assisting them with disability and so forth. It doesn't last forever, and it doesn't cover the cost of living. You end up in poverty, and then the government, as it currently is, has too many expenses because they spent so much on the vaccine, and backroom deals were made in order to distribute the vaccine and to implement it, when it was, by all accounts, whether I'm wrong or not, by my deduction, it was experimental. And the pharmaceutical companies used the entire public and the opportunity as the largest sample size that they could ever get in order to create further flu vaccines and cold remedies beyond what they had. With this traditional idea of virology and the pathogens, or the pathology of parasite infection, because all of these things matter, or with the prevalence of the concentration of hormones in people's stools and their urine, and what goes back into the water. This is why Alex Jones was saying, the frogs are turning gay. Like, absolutely, this is what happens. There's not always filtration systems within the environment or the water treatment plants to make the water pure again. Right. This is why my family has had a reverse osmosis system for almost my entire life, because my sister, when we lived in Oro on a farm, was infected with an amoeba, and it affected her development, and it had long-lasting negative effects as a to explain it differently in other words. I don't believe Alex Jones to be a bad guy. Everyone wants to gang up on him, which everyone makes mistakes. Everyone does, including very smart people. Excuse me. And you shouldn't insult your opponents, whether you believe with them or not. Same with Trump. You don't assume that guy's an idiot at all, or the current democratic government of the United States. They're not stupid. They're just misled and probably psychotic. Okay, so the intro here for cancers with cannabinoids, anti-tumor effects, signaling pathways, legislation. I'm going to get into hormones and cancer. So, okay, let's go. Risk factors, National Cancer Institute, cancer.gov. Hormones. So estrogen, a group of female sex hormones, are known as human carcinogens. Although these hormones have essential physiological roles in both females and males, they've also been associated with an increased risk of certain cancers. For instance, taking combined menopausal hormone therapy, estrogen plus progesterone, which is a synthetic version of the female hormone progesterone, can increase a woman's risk of breast cancer. So, birth control. Yeah, progesterone is one of the main components of birth control because it puts the woman's body into a state by which it's not releasing eggs because the womb thinks that it already has a baby in there. All right, so and moving further, menopausal hormone therapy with estrogen alone increases the risk of endometrial cancer and is used only in women who have had a hysterectomy. So, as a Christian, I don't like birth control. I don't. Like Catholics, right? If I'm going to be in a committed relationship, I want skin-to-skin contact as much as possible, like a baby. Because I'm just a big baby. Let's be honest about that. No joke. Let's not forget about that. Right. And the same thing happens for hyperconcentration of testosterone. So this is another reason to go against transgenderism, because what it does is say you got a man and he wants to become a woman or trans feminine or whatever, and you have phytoestrogens. It's another one. Let's look at this. Are plant nutrients found in several different types of foods, such as soy products, grains, beans, and some fruits and vegetables. So this is the whole soy boy thing, right? And it leads to the development of a gynecomastia, right? Because you have too much estrogen in your body as a man, it's not good. And if you have too much testosterone as a woman, that's not good either. It leads to an entire screw up of the vessel. And hence, my scientific resistance by the evidence that I don't support transgenderism, and I never did, because it's an affront to the natural world and our creation, as it is from the Creator. If I'm going to go by what's the phrase? At the end of at the bottom of scientific inquiry, you find God again. Simple as that. And when the hormones are out of whack and you have risky behaviors, it leads to predatory nature. Okay, but not in the same way that I look at the mongoose here as my spirit animal. It leads one to being a snake, in which they predate on young people in the same way that a parasite will hijack the body and the physiology and excrete an enzyme to not affect the host, so that they can spread into the next person. This is, unfortunately, this is the reality of things, and this is why the medical institutions and the scientific method within them and the psychology and mental health establishments have been completely decimated in order to support this gay washing propaganda that it's okay, but it's not. To be gay, as far as I can tell, is a curse. It's not a lifestyle that you want, and we shouldn't be supporting it. It's not a desirable lifestyle. Again, as it says in the Bible, why would it say it there? Why would most of the religions of the world say not to do it? Don't let a man lie with another man, and so on and so forth. The information is clear with the history of humanity and the history of propaganda. In that we can't have this. We can't have these behaviors because it leads to degenerate behavior and the degradation of society. Right? It becomes the cancer in very much the same way that suicide is. It's just another factor. I'm disagreeable in saying that. I don't care if you like me saying that or not. That is the truth. Malign me or whatever for saying it, but it needs to be said. Because as I said before in other videos, and including one of the first parts of this, is that there's people out there in the medical industrial complex that profit off of your suffering. Right? I'm trying to say these things to help you as best I can, whether you're on one side of the fence or the other. But, young people being hijacked and, kismet gone wrong for profit. Right? That's ultimately what it comes down to. There's a part of the industry that profits off of suicidal people, and flooding them with these chemicals, these pharmaceuticals, these psychoactive hijackers and supplements. When the reality is that what you really need is a good diet, a healthy support system in a community, creative outlets, or a purpose, a task and purpose, as it is with veterans. Veterans come home and they look at civilians and they're just like, you know how good you have it? Or say people that are of the faith and they go on missions to far-flung countries like Malawi or Sudan or like the Caribbean, like Puerto Rico, etc. Well, not Puerto Rico. I'm thinking of the Dominican Republic. That's where my father went. Or other places in Africa, because life ain't fair. Life is not fair, and not everyone has the same starting point. But we can't give everyone the same starting point in the way that society is organized, and in the way that say like this New World Order and this Davos thing, this 2030, the sustainability goals of the UN want to bring about. But the path to hell is paved with good intentions, and people will rebel, even with the information in front of them. The resistance to intelligence is, how dare you come up with such conclusions, or some postulations, or deductions, because of the information. But the only way to get around it, and to get around the propaganda, is education. Hence the mission of these videos, and my thesis. This is my thesis. This is my legacy as best as I can explain it to people. because this is the new era, right? We're in the digital frontier. There's no secrets, as I'm showing you right now. All the information is right there. It's right there. You just have to know the certain keywords and how to put them in. You got to learn how to research. This is my mission, is to educate and to save people from unnecessary harm. Because I go into very dark and toxic environments. And yet I'm still here and I'm still healthy. So how did I do that? Well, as I said with Wimmis, it's education. You know, the dirty dozen, the psychological factors, the chain of events that lead from the occurrence to the result, right? Causality, right? There's a chain of a sequence of 12 events or 12 decisions that lead to an accident or lead to a death, and it doesn't need to happen. You know, I can't prevent every single person from committing suicide or dying from cancer, because everybody dies at one point or another. That's the truth. We all die. And there's many different ways to die. 1,000 ways to die. You know, and they come down to drugs. Of these psychoactive drugs that are prescribed to people that hijack their brains and put them into the psychotic states is what leads to suicide. And suicide is the cancer of society. Okay, I think that's enough for now. We'll see you soon.